Well, good morning and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. Okay, today let's look at the tariff hike in the telecoms sector. Well, the telecommunications companies had asked for 100% tariff increase. In the event, the NCC has just approved that, yeah, there will be an increase, but it shall be 50%. Not 100%. And even that 50%, there are all sorts of conditionalities attached to it. There must be a significant improvement in the quality of services and, you know, that kind of a thing. Okay, that's on the one side, but as perhaps to be expected, NLC, TUC, you know, even the CNG, as I'm looking at one paper in front of me here, have rejected the 50% telecom tariff hike and have said that among other things, it's insensitive. It comes in the midst of Nigerians still trying to grapple with other price increases. So here we are. So let's talk about that today. And our guest is the Director of Corporate Affairs, Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, that is FCCP, Mr. Ondaje Ijagwu. Good morning to you, Mr. Ijagwu.
Good morning and thanks for having me.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. Well, let's look at this increase in the...
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you very much. I heard your response just now. Can you hear me still? We're just double checking it. Can you hear me still? Can you hear me? Mr. Ijagwu, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay. Okay, I think there might be a little matter of delay in the transmission of sound.
Yes, but I can hear you.
Okay, good, good. First of all, let me get your reaction on the 50% increase, which has been outrightly condemned by NLC and TUC. Especially from the point of view of the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, what is your reaction to, one, the increase, and then two, the rejection by labor groups?
Yes, our reaction is that of a regulator. We look at all of this from all fronts. We look at it from the supply side as well as the consumer side.
Okay, I heard that. I heard what you just said, but were you going to continue? I just heard you say that you look at it from two sides.
Because there's a howl back. I can't really get the sound from this.
Are you listening? I hope you're not trying to listen to the program off a television set, because that won't work.
I'm unable to hear you from my device, but at the moment I think I can speak. And like I was saying, yes, from the point of view of the regulator,
yeah,
we look at the issues from both the supply and demand side. Supply side, because the services would have to be there. And demand side, because we would want fairness to the consumer. We would also want that the consumer has value for money. So we look at both sides, and looking at both sides in this case, we're able to tell that it's like the chicken and egg situation. A situation where you will begin to ask yourself, should it be tariff increase first or improvement in quality of service before tariff increase? And having weighed the options, having looked at the situation carefully, we agree with our sister agency in this case. That's the Nigerian Communications Commission. we agree with our sister agency that for there to be sustainability in this business and for service to be provided on a steady basis, there would need to be this tariff increase. But not just tariff increase for the sake of it. Tariff increase tied to service improvement. So that is where we stand. And that is the undertaking we have gotten even from our sister agency as well as operators in this regard.
Okay, well, I mean, how are we going to be able to measure improvements in services? Are such devices available?
Sorry, I didn't get you.
I said, you know, since you said this is conditional upon the telcos themselves improving the quality of their services, I was wondering how we're going to be able to measure that. How will we be able to measure that indeed the quality of, they have improved the quality of service?
Okay, good. You know, they have a primary regulator, which is the Nigerian Communications Commission.
Yeah.
And that primary regulator has all the technical wherewithal to measure quality of service. They have parameters for measurement of quality of service. They have parameters for even improvement in quality of service. So we will be leveraging on the expertise of our sister agency in that regard. And you know, we recently also signed an MOU with the Nigerian Communications Commission. The MOU is all encompassing. We'll share information, would carry out a joint implementation of tasks, as well as also joint evaluation, particularly in this case, of whether there had been improvement in quality of service or not. So we'll be doing that together.
Okay.
We have a joint working group that is responsible for that.
Okay.
And definitely it's what we'll be looking at. But we'll, like I said, we'll leverage on their expertise while we provide the consumer perspective to all of these issues.
Now, it is that consumer perspective that I think NLC, TUC, you know, they have grabbed hold of with both hands, saying that how could we come up with this kind of an increase? These are very, very difficult times for the Nigerian worker and communer. Sorry, you didn't? Go ahead.
I didn't get your question very well, but
okay, I was saying that
about consumer perspective.
Yes.
We'll be looking at issues that had bothered consumers in the area of telecom services, issues that had come up in the several complaints we had received in the past and continue to receive.
Okay.
Issues like depletion of data, internet data unduly. Issues like paying for a service and having a transaction halfway, and maybe due to poor customer service, consumers are not able to get value for their money. Issues like you complained to a telecom company about a particular issue you're having and is not attended to. Then issues of generally poor service delivery. So these are the consumer perspectives we'll be bringing to bear when we intervene in that kind of situation. And that's exactly what we'll be doing.
Okay.
We'll look at things first from the perspective of the consumer. The NCC definitely will be looking at things. We also look at both sides anyway. But what concerns us in this respect is whether there is a level playing field for everyone to operate. And one of the things that NCC did that we are happy about with respect to this tariff is the fact that they capped it. They had a maximum cap. That presupposes that if they say, look, you cannot exceed 50% tariff increase, it means you can do 40%. Another operator can do 30%. And then a third operator could say, okay, look, I increased mine by 20%. And that's the kind of thing we would be expecting to see, because we want a situation where people can explore those kind of windows to be able to get more customers to their fold.
Yeah.
So we want that kind of stiff competition. So what they have done is not to say, look, you must increase yours by 50%. They have only said you cannot exceed 50%. So you could do 35, I could do 40.
They wanted they wanted 100%. Remember that they wanted 100%. They applied for 100%, but in the response now it was no more than 50%. Of course, that's why we're now thinking about, look, some might even say 40, some maybe even 30. But they started out wanting 100% tariff increase, citing, among other things, the value of the naira and all those kind of things. That the business climate had
100% increase, yes, more than 100% from what we actually gathered. Some operators asked for more than 100%. And definitely, we know that as people who are involved in negotiations in one form or the other from time to time, you know that people sometimes put their best foot forward and then they look for how these things will translate. And we believe that even some of the operators that had asked for more than 100% would have known that definitely the regulator would look at things differently. And that is just what has happened. But we expect that there will be competition because, like it or not, there's still competition in that sector. Every day and every hour, you see that the telecom operators are actually bidding for more uptake by consumers through their advertisements and a whole lot of things, even promotions, sales promotions, and all of that. So you would also recognize that there is keen competition in the sector. And because there is keen competition in the sector, everybody, we expect that people will be doing the best they can. So people might, some operators might actually reduce even the percentage increase to be able to bring on board more customers.
One certainly hopes so, but I think NLC has has told us that before NLC even came along with that, we knew the average Nigerian consumer is in very stringent times. Now, when it comes to percentages of the money available, I think it was Joe Ajero, NLC president, who was using the recently approved 70,000 naira, and he's worked out that look, this is something like 20%. If this hike goes ahead, that has been approved, it's something like 20%. And now that it is, you're saying that we should go to, 20, we should go to double, well, almost double. We should go to no more than 50%. This is going to now cost the ordinary telephone subscriber something in the region of 30% of his take home. Now, whatever the correct percentages are, the point that seemed to be made by Joe Ajero was that the Nigerian is just barely managing, and immediately we are coming along. So I wanted to ask you, sir, as the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, did you not see that the people at the lower end of the scale, this is going to be quite a significant increase? It seems to me that you've done your own sums as well and have arrived at the conclusion that it might not be palatable, but the Nigerian consumer can afford it. Is that how you have decided?
Let me say that it's not that we will just conjure figures with respect to percentage and say, okay, maybe it's 20, it's 30. He who wears the shoe knows where it pinches. The operators are the ones who wear these shoes, and they know exactly where it pinches them. And definitely, their regulator, their primary regulator, which is the NCC, I'm sure harvested all that they needed to harvest with respect to information, with respect to data, with respect to cost of operation and all of that before they arrived at what they did. One thing that we are careful about, when you do the job of a regulator, I think I need to state this. When we do the job of a regulator, we measure risk a lot. I think measurement of risk is even one thing that we need to be doing from time to time, because the lack of it is what has plunged this country into the abyss where we had been. And when we talk about risk measurement in this respect, you would have to weigh your options. If a man says, okay, look, the service I'm rendering to you, I can no longer render because of cost of operations. And he's been able to table or put the data bare on the table for you to see that this is what exactly it costs me to render this service to you. And you insist that you must continue to render. And even they gave their caveat to, because they had said that, look, if we continue like this, there might come a time when we begin to do load shedding like it's done in the electricity sector, where a zone in the country will have a service for a particular time and then they shut down the others. That is not the kind of thing we want to happen to consumers in this country. Because you'll be able to also tell that if you are at maybe at point A and you have service and your ally who is at point B does not have service, definitely there would be no communication. So we try as much as possible to avert that kind of situation where we begin to ration telecom service in Nigeria or do load shedding, like I said. We try as much as possible to avoid those kind of things. So when you see us look at these things in a different manner than maybe an activist would look at it, it is because we have data. We are also availed of all the necessary information, and we try to look at things objectively from both sides. And like I said, we look at things from both the demand and supply sides. We don't just situate ourselves in one location and say, okay, look, we would just look at the interest of the consumer. If you deny the consumer service, if you deny him choice, definitely you will not be serving his interest at the end of the day. So what we are looking at and what we are doing is to ensure that service is not disrupted, service continues to be reliable, and then there's sustainable improvement in the sector. So that's the kind of thing we're looking at, and definitely that is what we want to have. And that is why we must hold operators to account. We must ensure that whatever they have committed to in terms of service improvement, we are able to achieve it within the shortest possible time.
We certainly do hope so, because as you said, I'm happy you said that you look at it from both sides, from the seller side, so to speak, and the consumer side. And clearly you have worked out the sums, and it has been determined that the Nigerian consumer, he can come through this, he will come through this. But I think what you've said is that these are not conclusions that are lightly arrived at, that you studied it, and so that what you've just finished saying should not happen, where there is sort of a telephony shedding, as we have experienced elsewhere, so that that doesn't come about. Well, we take it, but I was going to ask, the struggle that Nigerians are having with other aspects, and I'm sure you'd have looked at that. This whole matter about just trying to make ends meet. Everything has become expensive. That's why the NLC said that it's a most inopportune time. But I suppose that doesn't really, affect what you've just said. That is that it is a reasoned, agreement with them that, look, you won't get 100, and you've just explained that some even wanted more than 100. Some even wanted more than 100%. But you've capped it at...
I can hardly hear you, but I want to hazard a guess that what you are asking is possibly maybe how it affects the purchasing power of the consumer.
Which is already battered. Yes, take it from that angle, which is already battered and bruised. Did you hear that?
Okay. Definitely. You know how we look at these issues. Like I said, we look at them as a regulator would look at an issue. We want the service to be there first, and then we want to be able to ensure that everybody's interest is catered to. In this case, that of the operator as well as the consumer. We don't want a situation where we go, because we have seen where services had collapsed in the past. We see a sister sector in this respect, you and I know, where services have all over the years collapsed to an extent that you are not able, even when you pay for service, you are not able to get that service at the end of the day. And we don't want that kind of situation to happen in the telecom sector. The telecom sector is one every Nigerian should guard jealously. The reason is that without it, even what we're doing now, we cannot do. We use it for almost every aspect of our livelihood today. You see a situation where we need to do transactions with our bank, we'll leverage on their services. We need to even make certain purchases, we'll do so. We'll need to do some research, we'll go online, we'll use their services, and like we're also communicating. So it's not just, maybe we can't limit this to communication. We limit it, if we do that, it's our own peril. The telecom sector is quite vital to the economy of Nigeria. Almost everything would have to collapse if we allow the sector to collapse. Okay. And that is why we're very careful and we're mindful of how we're looking at this. So from our own perspective, it is better for a consumer to pay a little more and then get commensurate service for that payment than for us to be left to our devices. Like, we generate power by ourselves sometimes in our various homes, even in our various offices. We are forced to generate power by ourselves. We do not have the means maybe to begin to install towers and then get telecom services powered up for us to leverage at individual level. So when we have this commonwealth and a situation where everybody can tap into it, both the low-cadre and the high and mighty in society, and almost enjoy equal service, I think that's the kind of thing we're looking at. So we know that, yes, it's a pain in the neck of the consumer, but our own commitment from our part is to ensure that we hold the operators to account. We hold them to account with respect to the promises they have made concerning service improvement. We also ensure that consumers get value for their money when they pay for these services. And that justice would continue, at least economic justice for the Nigerian consumer in that respect. Okay. So these are the things we're looking at. So when we weigh the options, yes, and then we look at the opportunity costs, we think and tend to think that it is better for us to pay a little more and have better services and have sustainable operations rather than for this system to collapse. And that's why we told the line we're towing.
Let us at this stage, play back the report that was made when all of this hit the public space a few days ago, that there was going to be a 50% maximum increase in the price of tariffs in the telecom sector.
Nigerians are yet to come to terms with the recent approval by the Nigerian Communications Commission for a 50% increase in tariff on calls and data. Less than 24 hours after this announcement, the federal government also endorses this decision, stating that the adjustment aligns with broader economic trends. Nigeria's Communication and Innovation Minister, who is at the National Assembly to defend his ministry's budget, is also defending this decision despite the outcry from many Nigerians. He says the decision aligns with broader economic patterns where tariffs can lead to higher consumer prices due to the added cost on imported goods.
Part of the development, I think the hike is also based on inflation globally. This is a sector that has not increased price for a long time. In fact, what government has been doing is managing the situation. The companies have been crying out for a long time that they're struggling. The cost of diesel, you can imagine how much they bought diesel last year and how much it's going for this year. And this is not a problem that is unique to Nigeria. But what we've done with them is saying that telecommunication services are now extremely important to our people. So it's not something you can just increase price haphazardly.
The minister also explains that the federal government of Nigeria plans to invest 6 billion naira to deploy 90,000 kilometers of fiber optic cable, expanding the country's capacity from 35,000 kilometers to 125,000 kilometers.
We have to make sure that the sector continues to stay sustainable. but at the same time, we don't want to inflict pain on Nigerians. So they were claiming for 100% increase in tariff. I think, as you can see from what NCC released yesterday, we had a lot of back and forth. They've been talking about since even before we were appointed. The first time I met them almost 16, 17 months ago, it was the same thing they were talking about. But now I think we've set it at about 50% to ensure that they can find ways to stay sustainable, but also the price hike is not significant to the point where it becomes painful for our people.
He appeals to Nigerians with an assurance that the decision is necessary to foster growth in the critical communications sector. TVC News, Abuja.
Okay, so there you have it. These are the considerations, such as we are also hearing from Mr. Ijagwu, who has been explaining that
it's a thing. Experience resourceful coverage was depth ever.
There is always more to a story than the screaming headline. The part of a story that is not told casts a shadow. It's like the part of an object that is not reached by light. On TVC News, I'm able to explore the many angles there are to a story, talking to stakeholders, asking the difficult questions, and digging for facts. I believe the viewers are able to make a better decision if they're well informed and understand not just a part, but the complete story. TVC News, first with breaking news.
The task of the leader.
Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, FCCP, and he's been explaining to us, as you also heard on that original report. Okay, this is a challenge that you can't hear me at all.
I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
Okay, is this not part of the quality of service that we're talking about? That we don't want to be in this territory. Haven't agreed that, yep, we can go 50% more. Now, here we are having these what look like telephony issues. You can't hear us. By the way, are you hearing me now? Are you hearing me now?
Yes, sure. I guess maybe in the next 3 months, next 6 months, we shouldn't be having this kind of challenge any longer. And it's part of holding them to account that we are saying.
Exactly.
Because we want a situation where we want our services to be top-notch. We want it comparable to anywhere in the world. And we know we have the capacity for that. So the increase that has happened definitely is a pain in the neck of every consumer. Consumers are not smiling at all.
At all.
Notwithstanding, like I said, it's better to make a little more sacrifice to get your service running and better than to have it collapse.
Indeed.
And we have seen the problem with a service collapsing in other sectors. We don't want a repeat of that in the telecom sector.
No, we don't.
Once beaten, they say twice shy. So Nigerians have had enough of services collapsing. Let us have our services top notch, and then let it serve the purpose. Let it be fit for purpose.
Let me bring on. I beg your pardon for interrupting. Let me bring on our first caller. Good morning, Mr. George, who has called in from Lagos.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Thank you for calling in, sir. Okay.
Uncle Yori, I'm surprised to hear the minister say that 50% increase is not a significant increase. 50% increase upon what we're already saying? I wasn't expecting to hear that from the minister. Where the problem lies is that the telcos, the equipment they are using, they are not expanding it, or they are expanding their subscribers every day. I did a quick check a few minutes ago, only to discover that MTN has more than 90 million subscribers in Nigeria. And in the whole of Africa, they have 126 million. So if you have 126 million in the whole continent, in one country alone, you have 90 million subscribers. When they started, during their first year of operation, they were having 20 million, 18 to 20 million subscribers. The equipment they were using to serve 20 million people is what they are still using to serve 90 million people. I think that is where the NCC should come in. Instead of allowing them to just be accommodating subscribers that they cannot take care of, let them grant licenses to more companies to come into the field, and competition will come in and it will bring the prices down. I don't think that what they are telling us is true. MTN is richer than any bank in Nigeria. Go and check their last year's profit report. So if they are saying they are making losses, how are they paying their staff? How is it that for 12, 13 years that they have not made any increase, they are surviving? So you can't tell a primary school child that one and he will believe you. They are not operating at any loss. They are making profits.
Okay.
But they are not expanding their facilities, their equipment. And that's where the issue lies. The regulator should ensure what the services they are offering us is worth the money. If you want to increase, why should you increase 50% at once? They should have mercy on people now.
All right, then.
NLC does not have the moral right to be complaining. On the other hand, they are the ones who wanted 650,000 naira minimum wage until it was eventually brought down to the level we are, from 30,000 to 70,000. Did they not expect that prices of other things will go up? You cannot eat your cake and still have it. So that does not justify the increase that we are experiencing.
Okay.
The NCC should do their work and make sure these people give services for what they are taking our money for. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. George. Okay, then. So, Mr. Ijagwu, you have it there. What can you tell us about the point that viewer brought up, that are we sure we've checked out all the presentation of these telcos, for instance? He cited in relation to one in particular and did make the allegation that is leading to my question that, look, the infrastructure they were using to service something like 18 million is what is still in place for around 90 million. I don't know if you can speak to those kind of figures, but they do say immediately that I hope they are not just swallowing whatever, that is, the authorities are not just swallowing what they have been told, but they have their own, methodologies for verifying and seeing how factual the positions are. Because if it should be that what you were using to service 18 million is what you're still using to service 90 million, I guess there's going to be a problem.
Thank you. The job of a regulator is a very difficult one. The job of a regulator is one in which you would need to assess every situation. It has a methodology. It's not a spontaneous thing, and it's not just a spur of the moment kind of situation. When there's always a method to that madness, because that kind of madness, and it's very simple. You would use some data, and it has to be empirical to every extent. It's very easy for one to sit down and assume that a number of things happen. But when you look at, or when you are faced with the actual operations, you would see that the situation is different. And let me also say that even as we speak, the regulator has a very huge task in one, ensuring that the people who are already serviced don't lose it. The second aspect of their work, of the regulator's work, is to also ensure inclusivity, to ensure expansion. As we speak, there are certain areas where you would go and the service is still very, very poor. Maybe the spread of the network, the various networks is very low in those kind of areas. And so if the kind of services we enjoy where we are in the part of our country will not be the same service maybe somewhere a man is enjoying at the maybe tail end of the southern axis of the country, or maybe at the tail end of the northern axis of the country. But as a regulator, it is your duty to look at all of this. It is your duty to also ensure that there is expansion in a manner that other Nigerians too would benefit from the kind of service we are benefiting from. So a whole lot of things are considered before decisions with respect to the kind of decision NCC just made is made.
Right.
It is not like I said earlier, figures are not conjured from the skies. It is figures that are available based on services that are being done and how feeling the pinch.
Okay, let me bring on Yakub, calling out of Dokbemu. Good morning to you, sir.
Yeah, good morning, Chifiori.
Good morning.
And, good morning to your guys and the other side.
Yes.
Chifiori, for me, I totally agree with Mr. George. I already had some little thing to what the field and we thing, and then you also not having very well. And then we are now saying that they were increased by 50%, and then the NCC is not telling us that they will approve that. Chiefly, it is only this country that, quote and unquote, all these private companies, they would beat we like a child, and then they would still tell us not to cry. And then the people that were there to help us, to assist us, I'm sorry to say this, it's like, and then your guys need to correct this. If I said it, it's like they are collude together and then change Nigeria. Why am I saying that? Chief, let me give you a typical example here. The example is NEC, this Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission, that we are telling us that we cannot be able to use our money to buy the meter, and then the NEPA people will come to remove the meter, tell us that the meter is outdated, and then they will not replace it. They will not tell us to go and use our money to buy another meter. Chief Jody, the example is that. So the people that were there to fight for us, they were not there to fight for us. Let me tell you, Chief Jody, as I'm talking to you now, this communication may break, and then they will still charge me. They will still remove the money as if that I enjoy the calling. Why can't they make this system work perfectly before the NCC approve that very particular tariff? So you should be able to give us the services before you say, okay, we approve the increment. What are you improving? So you are collecting our money to better your company.
But Mr. Yakub,
better your company, and then we got to pay for it.
But Mr. Yakub, Mr. Yakub,
yeah.
we have heard that all these presentations were indeed made to the authorities. They have evaluated it, everything that was presented to them, and have said, you're not going to get somewhere between 100 and even more than 100%, but we will grant you 50%. So it's like these presentations were made. We can assume that the authorities, the NCC, and even the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, they would have evaluated all of this and then decided that we'll give you 50%, not between 100 and over 100 that you want. What do you think of that, sir?
Yes, please, can I come in quickly?
Oh, have I lost Mr. Yakub? Okay, indeed. Please do. You just heard,
yes,
you heard the presentation of that viewer, and he feels that...
I want to respond. I want to have a direct response to one of the issues he raised.
Okay.
Which is the issue of replacement of obsolete meters and faulty meters.
For example, okay, he's gone over to another sector.
Yes, electricity distribution companies. Mm-hmm. You know, in November last year, electricity distribution companies they issued an information that required electricity consumers to go online and register for them to be able to recover their obsolete and faulty meters at a cost. What we did as an organization that protects the consumer was to look at what the rule, the regulation says with respect to recovery and replacement of obsolete and faulty. And we realized for you to do that as an electricity distribution company, one, you must have the meters you would use to replace the obsolete ones on ground. Two, it will be at no cost to the consumer. On the 5th or 6th of November 2024, about 2 months ago, this year, the regulator, that is NEC, and then the representation in Nigeria. And we made it, and that is because both the two companies had actually set, I think, a 14th of November timeframe for that to happen. But it was at our own intervention that didn't happen. And today, Nigerian consumers, electricity consumers in Lagos are still using those so-called obsolete meters. So to a large extent, we would not look at where the rights of the consumers are being undermined and then look the other way. We definitely would always ensure that we intervene when we need to. And like we said, the sorry situation about electricity, like we said during the, we have observed earlier, is not the kind of thing we want to happen in the telecom sector. When we speak like this, as Nigerians, we should also know that since 2013 to date, there had not been increase in the tariff. I would not say because to date there hadn't been an increase, there must have to be an increase. No. If they make a case for a legitimate case for increase, and our sister and our sister agency, and who is also their primary regulator, looks at it dispassionately and makes a decision, all we can do as a consumer protector is to ensure that whatever had been undertaken by the telecom operators are the things that they would do. For instance, the issues that border in the replacement of infrastructure, as somebody had alluded to earlier, issues that border on even customer service, all of those things are things we must hold them to account to ensure that whatever they had undertaken to do would be done. But in a situation where you are tasking somebody to do certain things and he's saying that, look, maybe for one reason or the other, I'm not able to do this, particularly when it's a legitimate call, you definitely will look at it. And I think that is what has happened. But one thing is, we would like to assure Nigerian consumers that we hold the telcos to account. We ensure that whatever they need to do, even certainly they must have to abide by regulations. They must also have to live up to the standards, the required standards as is expected of them. And these parameters are there. And these are some of the things that I've said that as a commission, we'll be working closely with our sister agency to ensure that these things are done and that consumers fare better in the next couple of months. We don't want a situation where things drag and then we all go down.
Okay, because to be fair, the mobile network operators themselves have hailed this move as a good way to start what they refer to as the recovery of the ailing sector. So that's the way they are looking at it. People are thinking that what is ailing in the telecom sector? Nothing is ailing in there. In fact, there's nothing but prosperity there, is the way most people will look at it when you look at all the kind of reports. Do you think people don't understand fully the functions of your agency, your commission, because from what we've heard, they would want you to, it would seem to me that they want you to support the Nigerian consumer that, maybe they're all Nigerians there. Maybe they all see what we're experiencing. Are those people not? In fact, somebody was a bit vexed at the minister saying that it was a modest increment. That, look, these people, don't they know what we have in our pocket, which is very little nowadays? So what would you say to those people who are saying that, as Mr. Yakub did, that you are not supporting us, you're supposed to be fighting for us, and we don't have anybody fighting for us?
Yes, thank you very much for that question. We actually don't want to begin to qualify the kind of increase we've had, whether it is negligible, it is modest, or it is high or low. All we are saying is if you make a case for an increase in tariff, because that is a regulated entity, and the law empowers the NCC to actually approve tariffs for telecom operators. So if they do whatever they are able to do and come up with certain figures, we'll be looking at those figures and saying, since Nigerians are paying for this service, you don't do it for them gratis. It's not like you render free service to Nigerians. They should be able to get value for their money. That is where we stand. And like my commission, like I said, like we give the instance of the electricity industry, we do this every day, even as we speak. Definitely as we're speaking, complaints will be dropping on our various platforms, online and even surface mail and all of that. So we try as much as possible to provide redress to complaints that we receive from consumers. And then some other things too, for a regulator like us, and that is exactly what we do, is to look at consumer detriments in every situation, because and what we consider to be a consumer detriment might not even look to the consumer himself like it's a detriment.
Okay.
It might not look like a risk. You know, it's like a child and a father. A child wants to climb because maybe he feels he enjoys some bliss from climbing and a host of other things. And then the father says, no, you don't have to climb because it is possible that you could fall from there and break your hand or your leg or even your head. So you don't need to climb. The child at that point will feel deprived and feel that maybe the father is beginning to make him not enjoy what he needs to enjoy. For us as a regulator, that's the kind of role we play. We are in the middle. We try as much as possible. We look at the supply side. If we say, okay, look, a supplier must not do this, and it affects the service you are receiving, even you tomorrow, you will be the one to say, oh, it's these people that are responsible for this. If they had yielded, the supplier would have been able to supply me. But what we do and what we ensure we do from every day and on a daily basis to ensure that you get value for your money, whatever you're paying for anything, you are able to get value for that thing. And we do just that. So, and a host of other things. There are a lot of background work we do that are not open and visible to the consumer. Part of it is even engagement with sister regulators like the NCC. Sometimes when we meet and we come out of our meetings, nobody will be smiling. The reason is we would have told ourselves the truth. And but those are not the kind of things we bring to the public to say. So
all right.
nobody that it's a very jolly good thing for us to preside over certain things and then just let go, maybe because definitely we are also consumers in our own respect.
Exactly.
We yes. So
so I suppose the point you've made, quite clearly is that the position we're in now regarding this tariff situation is not a position that was arrived at lightly. That all things were considered, and you've decided in your wisdom to peg it for now at a maximum, up to a maximum of 50%. And being positive-minded, you did say earlier that, look, you don't need to go all the way up to 50% for competitiveness. Some might even be saying that 40%, maybe even 35%. But I want to thank you very much, Mr. Ondaje Ijagwu, the Director of Corporate Affairs of the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission. Thank you very much for coming on and explaining this to us a bit better. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Our
Thanks.
pleasure.
I appreciate it.
All right, then. Okay. Well, that's our program today then. Do please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folani. Bye-bye for now.